Christopher, can you hear us?
Loud and clear.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Smith. I am chairperson of the Webster Groves Plan Commission. We are a 9-member board of citizens appointed by the city council to review development proposals and make recommendations to the city council regarding future development of the city. In addition to the members of the Plan Commission participating in person or via teleconference, we have a few other representatives of the city I would like to introduce. City Attorney Peter Buntrager, Planning and Development Director Mara Perry. I would like to welcome you all to tonight's monthly meeting of the commission and take this opportunity to explain how we operate. As indicated in our agenda, we will begin with the regular session of the meeting when we will hear new applications for rezoning or subdivisions. We will hear a staff report and the applicant will explain the proposal. We will then ask for comments from the public. At that time, anyone with an interest in the proposal may indicate to city staff they have a question or would like to express their opinion by clicking on the raise hand feature on Zoom. To make sure that we accurately record your name, we ask that you identify your full name and address at the beginning of your comment. When you make your comments, we ask that you be as concise as possible and not repeat a point made by a previous speaker. We also ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. One person who is a spokesperson for an organization may have 6 minutes to comment. After all citizens have spoken, the applicant will be asked to respond to any questions that have been raised during the hearing. When we have finished reviewing one proposal, we will move on to the next application. Comments concerning items not on the agenda should be made during the public comment section of the agenda near the beginning of the meeting. When we've completed the regular portion of the agenda, we will go into executive session. At that time, the commission will discuss the proposal and may decide to vote on the application or to postpone the decision. You are welcome to remain and listen to the discussion, but there will be no additional opportunity for public comment at that time. Our recommendations are sent to the city council. In most cases, the city council will conduct a similar hearing and must enact an ordinance before the proposal is finally approved. If the Plan Commission takes a vote tonight, the city council will likely take up this issue at its first meeting next month. If you want information regarding our vote or the progress of the application, you may contact staff at City Hall. I would ask that the acting secretary, read the first item for tonight's regular meeting.
Item number 2 on the agenda is the approval of minutes from September the 11th, 2023.
Any comments on the minutes? It's been a while back, we realize.
I move to approve.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, minutes are confirmed.
Item number 3 is public comment.
All right, we have no one here in person at City Hall, and
No one
No one
online either that is here for public comment.
thank you.
Item number 4, public hearings. There are no public hearings tonight. Item number 5, plats and site plans. 24 PC01 Tuxedo Park, Block 5, lots 43 through 64, boundary adjustment plat. A petition by Fleischer Living Trust, property owners of 415 Fairview Avenue and Bethania Danish Evangelical Lutheran Church of Webster Groves, property owners of 407 Fairview Avenue, for an application for a boundary adjustments plat to be known as Tuxedo Park, Block 5, lots 43 through 46, boundary adjustment plat. The subject properties encompass approximately 0.715 acres of land. The subject properties are located within the A4 7,500 square foot residence district.
So you have before you this evening a plat. I usually remind all of you that you typically get a boundary adjustment plat when there is something unusual about the property where it cannot meet all the elements of the zoning code. Typically, boundary adjustment plats are administratively approved by staff because the code allows adjustments to be made as long as all of the zoning on the lots as well as the structures on the property are in conformance with the zoning code. So in this case, I'm going to walk through why the adjustment is being made. I'm going to walk through what things are not being met and what essentially variances, and it's a slightly different set of factors for variances of subdivision plats versus what you would typically see of a variance going before the Board of Adjustment. But we'll walk through what they're requesting. And then because they're going through it in this process, it'll be a recommendation to City Council, and this same plat will go forward to the City Council. So this particular piece of property is two separate lots. They are zoned A4 7,500 square foot residence district, and all the surrounding properties are also 7,500 square foot residence district. To the west is the Union Pacific Railroad. And the property that is outlined in red, which is 407 Fairview, is currently a church structure as well as a rectory building. And that overall piece of land is the only that's not a single family residential property in that particular area. So there's currently a single family dwelling as well as a detached garage at 415 Fairview Avenue. That's the property that's outlined in blue. According to St. Louis County records, the house was built in 1914 and the detached garage in 2019. The property that's in red currently has a church and a single family dwelling with a detached garage. The address there is 407 Fairview Avenue. County records still lists it as being owned by Bethania Danish Evangelical Lutheran Church of Webster Groves. I'll talk a little bit about that as we get towards the end. According to church records and documentation, the church was built in 1904 and the single family dwelling, which was a rectory building, was built in 1920. So the request that's being made is to transfer 1,011 square feet from the property at 407, which is the church property, to the neighbors to the east at 415 Fairview. The reason for this request is that the property owners at 415 Fairview for many years have taken care of that property, have planted flowers and other things along that property. And at this time, because the church property is up for sale, they wanted to verify definitively that they had the rights to that area of property. So a agreement has been made rather than going through the court system for this boundary adjustment plat to occur. And that boundary adjustment would move the lot line over to address and take in the area that the property owners at 415 Fairview have been maintaining for a number of years. So to get a little bit closer into where some of the issues are and what's going to need to be addressed, because the property line is not moving over a full 10 feet. In this zoning district, a 60-foot wide lot is what is required, as well as a 60-foot average width of lot. They are moving this over just enough to encompass the area that they have been maintaining and planting. What it means is this line is going to basically go right up against the detached garage for the rectory building. It also is going to mean there are some implications to setbacks on the structures. You'll see in green, they are going to be providing an easement to the property at 407 so that there is the ability to maintain that garage should that garage remain for any length of time on the property. I'm going to get into a little bit more of the details. So per section 50.0303, each lot of a subdivision is required to meet the minimum width and area requirements of the zoning code. 415 Fairview did not meet the minimum width at either the front yard setback or the average when it was originally platted, because this was, again, one of the original plats from the 1800s. The width of that lot was only 50 feet wide. The request that's being made is going to move that lot line over, which will make it closer to being in compliance, but not bring it completely into compliance. So what it's going to do is bring the lot to be 56.73 feet wide at the front yard setback with an average width of 56.155. It is not going in a straight line completely back. It's kind of making a little bit of a jog to go backwards. So in the code, it requires that both of those numbers be 60 feet, the average lot width and the width at the front line of the structure. So that's one of the first variances essentially that is needed. And actually it's technically two, one for average width of lot and one for the width of lot at the front setback. In addition, because of the fact that this line is moving, it is now bringing the rectory structure on 407 no longer into compliance. So before, when the lot line was where it was, the house on 415 was not in compliance. Now with this move, the rectory building on the other property is not in compliance. So I have a little chart here to make it clear. So there's a minimum required side yard setback of 6 feet on the two properties. Right now, 407 Fairview is at 11.77 feet and 415 is at 3.86 feet. And they're almost essentially flipping. It's being proposed with this lot line change that 407 Rectory Building is going to be at 5.04 feet and 415 Fairview will now be at 10.59 feet from the structure to the property line. In addition, the accessory structure is required to have a 5-foot side yard setback. It was existing at 4.79, so it was already not in compliance. And now it's technically going to be not in compliance even more so because the line is going to kind of go through where the structure is going to be ever so slightly on the neighboring property with an easement that addresses both the edge of that garage as well as maintenance for that garage. And that would be recorded on the plat. Should that garage be removed, a new garage would have to meet the required setbacks of the zoning district. Same thing with if something should happen with that rectory building, any new would need to meet the current requirements. That pretty much summarizes all of what is required. Typically, when we put the ordinance together, the ordinance that goes through the city council will state that all provisions of the city code shall apply, except as expressly modified in the ordinance. That addresses any of the things that they need to address in the code, fire code, building code, anything else related to any of our codes. And all future development at the subject properties shall meet the existing municipal code requirements. The establishment of the plat precludes them from obtaining variances for these particular elements because they've created their own hardship by moving that lot line. So trying to obtain another setback for a structure or addition or something off of that lot line, it would preclude those things related to this new lot line being established. Any questions?
The garage is. What's going to happen if the garage is removed in the future? Would the easement then cease as well?
No, it would not.
They would
It's still on the
have that
plat.
space.
Can
So-
those things be separated upon removal of the structure that the easement's required for? The easement would cease to exist also? Can there be a clause?
So they could, instead of recording the easement on the plat, they could record the easement separately. We hadn't really discussed that in detail because they were trying to focus on getting all of this done at once as part of the plat. We could talk with them and they wouldn't have to come back to Plan Commission for us to address that, but we can look at that as an option for them.
I mean, to my mind, that's more of an issue between the two property owners, but
Correct.
If it is included as part of the plat, could the two property owners still change it, or it's just part of the plat and they would have to come back through us?
It's recorded on the plat and technically you really can't just come back through you to remove that easement off the plat.
So you would
Um,
give the property owners more power by having them do it external to the plat
It
in the future.
probably would help them to do it external to the plat, so that it is a separate instrument that could be addressed.
So the lot that lot 43, 413. So that will have a frontage of 61, something like that. So the 56. So it's still going to be not in
It's
conformance.
still going to be not in compliance.
Non-conforming.
Yes.
Mara, is the garage door on the west side?
I believe so the church has a parking lot essentially. And let me pull the aerial photograph up. I believe they come through this parking lot to access into the garage. It's been a while. Sorry, I haven't seen lately how you access it, but it is not accessed from the main street frontage. And then a couple other quick points to point out. One of the other things that it says lot 43 through 46, The property that the church owns is under common ownership and has been under common ownership since 1933. So our code deems it as a merged single lot, but because it was only done via our zoning ordinance, we did have them cleaning that up at the same time so that this new plat will officially show it as a single lot, which will make it, again, much cleaner for them to address, and it made it easier for us to do the boundary adjustment. In addition, since the property is up for sale, there is a chance that we might have to change some of the signature scripts in regards to who's going to sign off on this. We also are going to need a legal opinion as to who gets to sign off on this because that church is no longer in existence, and we need to make sure that who can legally sign the plat. So we're still working on that piece too.
But there was some entity that represented themselves as part of this application.
Yes.
Okay.
So the Kansas City Synod, who have taken over this particular piece of property, is who has signed off on the application. And that's who was dealing with the legal matter with the neighboring property owners. So we have all of that. But when it comes to the final signature on the plat, we're still not sure because the plat still says the Bethania Church of Webster Groves. So I need to know exactly who has the legal right to sign the plat. And they've been made aware of that. It doesn't stop it from coming through Planning Commission and City Council. We can get it through all of that. And then if we need to make some amendments, once we know who can legally sign.
So by our approval, our recommendation and the council's approval, we're actually granting a variance for all of these setbacks.
So,
So it doesn't have to go to
right.
Board of Adjustment.
Yeah, the way our code works is it says it has the ability for the council to vary some of the requirements when approving a subdivision plat, which this is being moved through the process as essentially a subdivision plat by doing some consolidation and moving the lot line at the same time. And they will not need to go get multitudes of variances with the Board of Adjustment.
But like you said, if all of the structures were to be removed, they would be subject to the underlying zoning. Okay.
Correct.
And all those variances or all of these exceptions would go away.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Christopher,
No question.
but make sure,
Okay. Adjourn of the regular
um,
session. Oh, is the petitioner.
Well, it's not a public hearing, so they were made aware that unless there were specific questions, it's not a public hearing. We don't necessarily need to ask anything of the petitioner. If they do have a question, it looks like online. So if they do want to raise their hand and ask any questions of you, they definitely can. It's the ability to do that, but it is not a public hearing.
okay,
We're going to adjourn the regular session then, at this point.
motion,
Motion.
second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Executive session, 24 PC 01 Tuxedo Park, Block 5, lots 43 through 64, boundary adjustment plat. Petition by Fleischer Living Trust, property owners of 415 Fairview Avenue and Bethania Danish Evangelical Lutheran Church of Webster Groves. Property owners of 407 Fairview Avenue for an application for a boundary adjustment plat to be known as Tuxedo Park, Block 5, lots 43 through 46, boundary adjustment plat. The subject properties encompass approximately 0.715 acres of land. The subject properties are located within the A4 7,500 square foot residence district.
All right, comments?
I'm good.
My only consideration would be taking out the easement potentially. I'm not dead set on it, but I do think for the future property owner. Sorry, looking up at lot 43, having them separate, if that ever needs to, that garage ever is taken down, then there's the opportunity to get rid of that easement. I don't see why it would ever be a problem, but once an easement's there, it's very hard to remove, especially if it's part of a plat. So I think that may just be in the best interest of the future property owner, and make it a cleaner process.
You confirm that we can proceed with tonight's business and that can.
Yes, you definitely can. And we can just talk with the property owners about doing it as a separate instrument, which is easy for them to do.
I didn't see the script. Is the script on the maintenance agreement such that it's tied to the existing structure so that in effect, if the existing structure is removed, it becomes moot anyway? Is it a de facto versus the de jure argument?
So I would need to, I know they have it as a 5-foot wide maintenance easement. We would probably want to look at, it would be better for them to have something that it essentially goes away if the garage is no longer there, versus the way that it is on the plat, it's going to be a maintenance easement on the plat. So if they do it as a separate instrument, they can have language in it that would allow it to potentially no longer exist if or should the garage ever be demolished.
I got you. I haven't seen the script itself there. I'm just wondering if that script is maintenance for the existing structure, something like that, to where the fact that if that structure is gone,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter anyway.
Yeah, they didn't really, they just listed it as a maintenance easement. They didn't do a specific script. They just listed it as a maintenance easement.
Okay. Any other comments? We don't have any factors to go through, so I guess we still need to put it up for a vote.
Make a motion. I make a motion to approve 24 PC01.
Are you making a motion with or without the easement?
How would you say that? You want to just take it out, or do you want it as, do you want it something written on the plat to say? Yeah, is there gonna, I mean, there's gonna be a document, there can
think-
be.
Yeah.
Or just take it out altogether?
Yeah.
So let's address this first. So right now, what is in front of you is the division of the plat, right? So we know where the land is, we know where the line is trying to move. It's not going to touch the easements that are on the plat, and there's nothing, it's not a power that you have to adjust that on the plat tonight. We're simply talking about moving it over with the variations, and that's the power that you have. There's obviously private property rights that are at play here too, and we have to be cognizant of this. Their agreement is for the boundary to shift, and that's all, and that's what they're here petitioning for tonight. So, frankly, I think if you had something about the easement in the motion, I just don't think it would have any effect. But I think it's best to focus in on the issue that's in front of us tonight.
But
Yeah.
we're approving a plat. If it's shown on the plat,
But it's a preliminary plat. It's not a final plat. So you really are only looking at a preliminary plat. The final plat goes to the city council.
Okay.
So it's on the record that it's an option that we can look at and talk with the property owners on, and that is definitely addressing it. You're just approving a preliminary plat to move the lot line.
I'm sorry, I'm still confused. I'm approving a preliminary plat to move the lot line. I'm fine with that, but it also includes an easement. So my choices are approving the plat with the easement or disapproving the plat with the easement tonight.
Correct.
Okay. So those are our options.
okay, well, there's there was a motion, but it wasn't seconded, so. If you want to make another motion to approve the plat.
I mean, to my mind, I think know more about this than I do. I mean, to my mind, if they want to do it in a way that we think is less advantageous, that's still up to them. I wouldn't personally object to
You can
that.
do it before it goes.
It's up to them, but
We're gonna
that
address
takes
it.
away the ability for any future property owner to remove that easement, which is my concern. I have no problem with the easement. I agree. That should be handled between the current property owners. But including it in perpetuity is where I have concern, because it's not an independent part of the, I mean, it's a plat, it's
I
not an
don't-
easement, it's a plat.
But that's
don't
still,
think-
but that's still, I mean, that's a barrier to the future property owner or the current property owner in the future.
Right.
But that's not true, is it? I mean, the owners would still have the ability to do an easement vacation in the future. So the way
Correct.
you said it, ma'am, I'm sorry.
You can do an easement
You could do
vacation
an
on a
easement
plat.
vacation.
I thought we said.
But
we could.
it's not on a plat. You have to do a separate document to vacate the easement. So you still have to do, it's easier to have a separate easement that has language that says it goes away should some factors. If you have to do an easement vacation, that actually still has to come back and go through a process. And you can't just amend that plat. It's a whole separate thing that has to come through in order to vacate that easement.
Okay, but there is an avenue to handle that.
There's ways
Okay.
to handle it in all these different ways, but you can't just amend, like it wouldn't come back to here in order to vacate the easement. It would have to go to city council for an easement vacation. And it's a process, it's a longer process. So if they do a separate easement and don't put it on the plat, there's still gonna be processes. They have the way to get it removed.
And at the end of the day, the easement is a private agreement between private entities, right? So we don't have any stake in that. What we can do is speak with those parties and get it cleared up before it all goes to county to get recorded on the new plat. But right now, the only thing that we have in front of us is the moving of that boundary. That makes sense?
Right, so if we approve this plat as preliminary plat as it is with our discussion that we're having here, that's going to go to council too. So in between the time we approve it and it goes to council, you can have those discussions with the person that filed it. And then planning commission can, and if an agreement is done before then council will either remove it or take it out or
So
leave it in.
Just so you know, a separate easement, like if they were just coming in and getting that easement, it wouldn't even come to us. We do not even
Right, I
approve it,
agree.
look at it, anything. It goes, someone can make an easement and say, I'm going to allow you to play pickleball on my
That's why it's
yard.
odd to me that it's here, I guess.
Because I think they were trying to clean everything up at once. And so sometimes people put it all on one document. And if they're already in agreements, especially if they've been in court and they're trying to address all their issues at one time, they put it on the plat.
I would submit, I mean, I see your point. You're burdening the future owner and maybe they can't work it out with the neighbor down the road. They can now. That's all good. But you are approving the plat, and I appreciate your point, trying to approve the line, but the point is, I'm seeing you're putting the line right up next to that garage, which without the easement makes that garage unmaintainable. So I do think it is prudent to put it on the plat so that it's still maintainable. And if and when down the road, somebody wants to vacate it, I think it becomes if that garage is down, I don't think the next owner is really in practice going to care.
Yeah,
about
I would
the
hope not, right?
They
But
won't, they won't need the easement because they'll have to build it with
Right.
the.
they won't
appropriate
need it,
setback.
but they would have it, is my point. And you never know who the future owner is going to be. I agree. The
Right.
chance of that is probably very small. I'm simply just raising the concern, right? Because if they build that another structure some other distance away and they want to park a lawnmower next to it now, they would have the right to do that until that easement's vacated.
So the only thing that the easement could, if you are feeling strongly about it, the only thing you could do would be to vote down the current plat as it sits with the easement on it. There are some issues with that because again, there's certain things that we're considering. The reason it's in front of you instead of a staff decision is because of the variations that are required, which have to do with the setbacks. It doesn't have to do with the easement. this is something I'm sure that because we're seeing it, they're already addressing the easement. I don't think it's a good idea to vote one way or another because of the easements that's on there. I do think it's fine to ask that staff address that with the petitioner. But as far as the action that you take, it shouldn't consider the easement, and you shouldn't consider it when making that decision. That make sense?
Well,
I-
we have
again,
to
I guess
consider,
I'm-
it's part of the plat. It is part of the consideration. I appreciate what you're saying, but I mean, I don't think that we can say we should not consider it or it wouldn't be part of the package. That is probably not,
So
you
I-
know.
I understand what you're saying, but it's not, just because it's part of the package doesn't mean it's something that that you have the power to consider, right? Your powers are granted by the ordinances, and what your decision here today is whether that boundary should be adjusted. I mean, frankly, there's lots of things on that plat that aren't up for consideration and aren't within the power of the commission tonight. And again, I understand you looking at that and being concerned, and that's concerns that we can raise, but those should go to staff so staff can address them. We need to be considering, and we are focusing in, this is a whole flow chart of how many different places are going to hit this before it gets approved by county and the final plat or before the final plat is done. Plan Commission's one of them, right? It's going to go to city council. It's going to get staff review. They're going to have private agreements in there. All of this is going to take place, and we have to assume that everyone else is going to do their due diligence just like we are. Okay?
So what we're to consider is whether moving that line next to the building is appropriate, whether creating another nonconformity with the rectory is a consideration, not the easement.
Correct. Because without those variations, it wouldn't have even come to you. That's why this is in front of the Plan Commission.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. Let's go straight to roll call on this. Option to abstain, of course. So, Annie,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
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 Mike,
Yes.
Yes, Maddie. Chris is the one.
Aye.
Christopher. Aye. Chair votes aye. So that passes. All right. Well, good discussion. Appreciate everyone's diligence and really looking at the issue. So.
Other business?
Any other business?
So a bunch of other business. The next April meeting could end up being very full. I already have 2 CUP applications. I believe I'm going to have a 3rd CUP application, and I have a text code amendment. So we might have 4 public hearings at the April meeting. So just be aware. I really would love to have everybody in person because it will be a very full agenda. One of the CUPs is for, because I know 2 of them have come in. One of the CUPs is for an auto repair business that's been in operation since 1940. So we can't find an original CUP, but it's changing hands. So I need a brand new CUP for the new owners that are purchasing it. So that's the one CUP. The second CUP is for a drinking establishment, a brand new drinking establishment. So it's going to require the full public hearing. The third one is actually for this church, for a new church. And so I've got that as the third potential CUP. And then last but not least, I have a text amendment. It's been a while since we've talked about tattoo parlors, but we've been getting a lot of conversations about permanent makeup, which right now falls under the definition of a tattoo parlor. And we're trying to maybe separate those out from one another because the permanent makeup is falling a lot more under salons and other types of beauty versus a tattoo parlor. And so trying to separate the two from one another, that permanent makeup might not need a full CUP, and the separation from churches and schools and other things when it's part of an overall salon. So there's potentially 4 public hearings on for that next meeting. So that was the first thing. The second one was, so I think I gave you an update. We had 5 Teams submit for the comprehensive plan project. We narrowed those 5 teams down to 3 for interviews. We held the interviews last week of those 3 teams. We still haven't made a final decision on that. They were all great. And it's going to be a very, very, very tight decision.
They from St. Louis or they?
It's a mix. It is a mix. Out of the 3 we interviewed, 1 local, 2 out of town. So again, a very good mix. Jeff gave lots of hours. So thank you to him. He helped both with the narrowing down as well as the interviews. We were here from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. doing the 3 interviews sort of back to back to back. So we should have that. And just as a reminder, that timeline for the comprehensive plan is going to be right at about a year or so. So we would hire someone, they'd probably start as early as April-ish, and then be going for a year through until May or June of next year. So it will be a lot of work, a lot of meetings, a lot of public hearings, lots of different other things to get the word out, pop-ups and other things to make sure that people are giving us feedback and getting involved. I think that's everything unless anyone has any questions about anything.
Next meeting is April 1st, 2024. Motion to adjourn.
It's April Fool's Day.
Yeah, I'm serious. I'm serious. It's April 1st.
I'm serious that we have potentially 4 public hearings on April 1st.
Making up for those 6 months.
We are making up for all that time.
Saved them all up.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Second,
All right.
sure.
Anyone opposed? All right.
Okay. Stop. Oh,